right. So I had just graduated college, and I needed to get the hell out of Boulder because I had spent way too much time here. I didn't have too much money, so I was looking on Craigslist for a cheap ride somewhere, and I had some friends living in the Bay Area. Anyway, I saw this one post on Craigslist that said, "Free ride to San Francisco if you can drive stick." Well, I could kind of drive stick, but once you get on the highway, you're mostly in like 4th or 5th gear, and you don't really stall out too much, so they didn't really have to know I was probably going to get away with it. Anyway, we meet up, me and this person, at 8 p.m. to kind of get a sense for each other, because you meet some odd folk on Craigslist. So we tried to make sure we weren't setting ourselves up for a weird situation the next day. We met the next morning at 8 a.m. and decided we're going to drive all through the night. So we get in the car, we're driving, and she's listening to mostly reggae music. I think her name was Allison, I can't remember exactly. Reggae music and a lot of, I don't know, like alternative rock or something. It's pretty like relaxed. And so we're driving, and eventually it's getting later into the night, and there's a blizzard rolling in. It's not really hitting yet, but there's like slight flakes falling, and it's kind of getting dark, and we're about an hour outside of Reno. We've been driving for like, I don't know, like 12 or 14 hours. We're getting kind of tired, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting tired. I'm actually going to take an Adderall that I had left over from cramming for finals, and do you want some Adderall to stay up? And she's like, no, I got something for myself. I'm like, oh, okay, what's that? She's like, oh, I'm going to smoke some tweak. And I was like, oh, tweak, what's that? She's like, oh, you know, meth. I'm like, oh, okay. And like kind of what was coming to mind for me was this like commercial with this person like in the corner scrubbing with a toothbrush. And I was like, oh, fuck. And so then I'm like, well, okay, you know, you do your thing, you do you. And she smokes a little bit of meth, and she's like, oh, okay, like, I don't know. And then I'm like, okay, well, obviously I'm gonna drive. She's like, no, like I'm a way better driver on meth. Like that's why I smoked it, so you know, I can drive through the night. And I'm like, no. That makes me really uncomfortable. Like, I gotta drive. So we're kind of going back and forth, and I can't really convince her. And then so I realized that the only possible chance I have is to challenge her to a game of rock, paper, scissors, because no one can deny the fairness of that, right? So she accepts my challenge, and first thing I like, confident, I throw rock, and she throws scissors, and I'm like, yeah, 1-0, okay. My chances of winning are like a lot higher. I'm not gonna die. So then, you know, keep going. We're like tying, and then I throw rock again. She throws paper, and it's tied up. I'm like suddenly a lot closer to death, and getting nervous. And then I'm like, oh, I threw rock so many times. I gotta use reverse psychology or something. And throw rock again. No, she knew what I was gonna do. She threw paper, and all of a sudden, we're going like 117 down the highway, and her taste in music changed like drastically. We're listening to like solid death metal, and I'm just kind of like cinching up my seatbelt and like thinking about like what the best way to like position yourself if you're gonna crash, like what's the safest. And then like half an hour later, we get into Reno, and they say, oh, the pass to Lake Tahoe is closed for the night because it was snowing. So then all of a sudden we're like, crap, we don't have that much money, and we can't make it to the bay. And so we end up renting this motel room, and we're like, get there, and we're like, oh, this is kind of awkward, I don't really know you. And they only have like a queen bed. And so like, it's kind of like, kind of nasty motel room too. I had like a sleeping bag. I kind of rolled it out and got my sleeping bag and just like on the far edge of the bed to give her as much space as possible so that she didn't feel like creeped out. And then we're kind of like both, they turn the lights off, trying to go to sleep. But after like a half hour, 45 minutes, one of us is like, hey, are you still awake? And we're like, yeah. And it kind of turned into like a little, like a 12-year-old slumber party where you're like staying up all night long, just kind of like gossiping about your life. And I don't know, I found out a lot of cool things about her life. Like she had taken this car that we were driving, and she said that she was going to visit her friend. She lived in San Jose with her dad. She said she was just going to go to Santa Cruz, but she actually drove to Denver to visit an ex-lover of hers and never told her dad. And she had been expelled from her Catholic school for having sex with her queer lover in the confession booth. And I was like, oh, this person's awesome. And then we, the next day we got up and we made it over the pass, and she dropped me off, but it was a really great time in the end. But looking back at it, I just realized that the Adderall is actually basically just like another version of meth. It's amphetamine. And my judgment about it was unfair. It was kind of a classist thing. And I don't know. So there you have it.